Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us today at the 5th Annual GSSA National Symposium hosted in partnership with the University of Utah. My name is Anusha Jayaram. I am one of the national co-chairs for GSSA, and I will be co-moderating this panel for me this morning, for some other people in the afternoon, and for us others at night with Helen Lee, who I will let introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us on this panel with this amazing array of speakers we have this morning. My name is Helen Lee. I'm a current fourth-year student at Indiana University and on the national board at GSSA. Great to see everyone.
All right, Helen, I'm going to start sharing a very quick presentation for our audience so that we can go over some key terms that we'll be using as a part of this presentation. So one of the first things that we actually want to do for everyone is to poll everyone, which I will start in a moment. All right, so the poll should have been launched. So we want the attendees that are viewing to answer this question. Before today, how familiar were you with the term South-South partnerships? We'll give it a minute for the results to come in, and then I will share the results with everyone. We have 2/3 of everyone that's voted, so just a few more votes. We're at 70%. Can we get to 75? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And you should be able to see the results right now. So for this poll, I think, Helen and I, when we were planning this panel, we think that a lot of people wouldn't have heard of this critical definition of South-South partnerships. And so I think this poll really helps us illustrate kind of where the audience is with this particular relationship model within global health. So Helen, on to you.
So part of what we expected, and again, what we saw in the polls, we just wanted to create a foundation for everyone. And actually, Dr. Roy's talk earlier this morning created really some great background for why this is such an important topic. So we'd like to go ahead and start out with just a couple definitions. So the first two are, what is global north and global south? So these concepts are actually fairly complicated concepts that have evolved a great deal over time. Originally, it covered more of a geographical or geopolitical meaning, but since then it's really expanded to incorporate historical and contemporary patterns of wealth and power. And as the geographical focuses began to loosen, the global south and global north came to be viewed more in terms of development or resource availability, even replacing terms like first or third world country. Today, these terms continue to grow with increased recognition of how historical and current day subjugation and oppression impacts the ability of a country or even a community within a country to develop. Moving on to the actual South-South cooperation definition, which is the subject of our panel today. This is basically the exchange of technology, knowledge, or skills between two or more global South settings with the goal of pursuing specific development goals. One example of such partnerships is the Human Milk Banks Network, which is an organization that has the goal of pursuing provision of donor human breast milk to families and children in need. This network actually originated from partnerships between Brazil and other Latin American countries and has since grown to a global scale. And the funding and financing of this network are completely by the countries which participate within it. Want to go to the next slide, Anusha? Awesome. So despite the emerging notion of South-South partnerships, Dr. Roy this morning really touched on how the traditional current understanding of global health partnerships still remains predominantly of the North-South model. However, evaluation of global health leadership and influence, like you see here on the picture on this slide by the Global Health 50/50 organization, it really shows that the power dynamics in these North-South partnerships continue to skew towards the global North. And the goal of true equity between partners in many areas of global health, such as the ones listed here, remains elusive to this day.
Thank you so much to Helen for setting up the definitions for this important panel. I want to touch briefly on the importance of this topic prior to moving to panelist introductions. So I have found through my own medical school experiences and the experiences of other US medical students and trainees that US medical education, and I suspect a lot of other high-income country medical education, largely still teaches to the traditional North-South partnerships. North-South partnerships have done a lot of work to support low resource settings and low and middle income countries, but they still tend to center the importance of global North aid, experience, and resources. And I think that there is always a chance that this can perpetuate the savior complex within our work. So often we see global surgery led by high-income country partners. And so we can see this in programs such as master's and certificate programs that are usually located in high-income countries, financial support that comes from institutions such as the National Institutes of Health in the US, and also, just as Helen mentioned, expertise in the forms of a lot of heads of organizations or CEOs, principal investigators also still being from high-income countries. And so I really think that we must learn to break with this thinking and support leadership and resources that are centered in the communities that we are trying to impact. And so for us today, we're talking about the Global South. So I think that learning about and supporting South-South partnerships is a critical part of how we move global health and global surgery towards a more equitable process, and ultimately hopefully see a world where everyone has access to safe surgery and to universal health coverage. So we are really, really excited to host this panel today to hopefully bring this idea to more and more people so that it does continue to grow in the ways that we're hoping it does. So I'm extremely excited to announce the panelists for today's panel. Let me just stop screen sharing because I know that they all have their videos on as well. So first we have Dr. Doreen Nakku, who is a senior lecturer and head of department of ENT surgery at Mbarara University of Science and Technology, and an ear surgeon at Mbarara Regional Referral Hospital in Uganda. She's also the vice chair of the Otolaryngology Society of Uganda and the director of the Temporal Bone Dissection Program at MUST. As a surgeon, she is passionate about ear and hearing health and improving these services through research and training. In her teaching position, she is an advocate for competence-based resident training in global health and surgery through collaboration. In her leadership role, she has fostered collaborations with other local and international institutions to improve the MUST ENT training program through student exchange programs, research, and training workshops. During her tenure, she has overseen and assisted in the establishment and growth of the MUST annual temporal bone dissection course and the annual cadaveric endoscopic sinus surgery course. These are one-of-kind courses in the region with both local and international attendees. Our second speaker will be Dr. Andres Rubiano, who is a professor of neurosciences and neurosurgery at the Universidad El Bosque in Bogota, Colombia, and chair of the neurological surgery service at Valle Salud Clinical Network in Cali, in Colombia as well. Dr. Rubiano has been involved in trauma care research, training, and advocacy, working hand in hand with colleagues of international medical societies, and as a member of the Trauma and Emergency Care Committee of the World Health Organization. He has participated in several research projects with the aim of developing capacity building for trauma care in low and middle income settings. Dr. Rubiano is its founder, medical director, and educator with the Meditech Foundation, a research and training center in Colombia dedicated to improving medical skills for pre-hospital providers and emergency medicine physicians in advanced trauma care. In 2014, Dr. Rubiano was chair of the neurological surgery service of the El Bosque University Clinic in Bogota. And since 2016, he is developing his practice as chair of the neurological surgery service in the Trauma Clinical Network at Valle Salud in Cali. He also acts as vice president of the Global Neuro Foundation in Davos in Switzerland, President-elect of the Colombian Association of Neurosurgery, Chair of the Colombian chapter of the ACS Committee on Trauma, President of the Neurotrauma and Intensive Care chapter of the Latin American Federation of Neurological Societies, and Chair of the International Committee for the Neurotrauma and Critical Care section of the AANS. And last but definitely not least is Professor Pankaj Jani, who is a surgeon endoscopist, an educator, trainer, and leader who for over 30 years has worked in Kenya and the East and Central and South African region, increasing the surgical capacity through education and training. Professor Jani works at the Department of Surgery, University of Nairobi, and is an honorary consultant surgeon at the Kenyatta National Hospital, immediate past president of the College of Surgeons of East, Central, and Southern African Surgeons, and vice chair, executive committee, interim board of directors for GSSA as well. Professor Jani has been extensively involved with surgical training and health system strengthening in 18 countries in the East, Central, and Southern African region. And Professor Jani was a founding member, and now the immediate past president of GSSA. Professor Jani has traveled both widely in Africa and abroad with the aim of improving surgical training and the care of surgical patients in Africa. So thank you to everyone. If you can't tell, we have some heavy hitters on the panel today, and we're very excited to hear from all of them. And so without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Dr. Nakku, who's going to be our first speaker.
Well, thanks, Anusha. Sorry, I was having a bit of screen trouble there. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. As introduced, I'm Doreen, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to speak at this conference. I'm going to speak about South-South partnerships, and Helen did a great job of defining it. I have to admit, I'm one of those people who struggled with the definition in the beginning, and you've really summed it up well. Thank you. So I come from a university, one of the really the second biggest university in Uganda. It's called Bar University of Science and Technology. And as introduced, I had the ENT department. And the first slide you're looking at, I really thought, which partnerships should I talk about? And I figured I should speak about those that have been ongoing for quite a while, and also those that have influenced our program the most. You'll see that there's Makerere University, that is a local university here. It's our biggest university. There is a Catholic University in Tanzania, Bugando, and then there is the National Ear Institute, it's also called the Kaduna Ear Institute in Nigeria. We've been collaborating with them since 2018, and it's mainly through the ear surgery and otology training for them. The Makerere University collaboration started out fast. That was the beginning of our program, and it started with us adapting the curriculum for the ENT training program that they had been running for several years, and then trying to adapt it for our region. We are further southwest, and they're more in the center of the country. But the collaboration I really would like to base off a lot of today is the one with Bugando, because I think it has been the best thing that has happened to us in a very long time. The goal for our partnership with them was really to benchmark on how to establish something that's contextually relevant to us, and also something that is sustainable. We have had a lot of North-South collaborations that are great, and they're still ongoing. But I will say, as we'll see the challenges further on, that they're not extremely very sustainable. It's very expensive if you're looking to do a student exchange program, if you're looking for time away as faculty. And then sometimes we really will struggle with what is relevant for our community versus what they have to provide. And it's really just cultural difference. It's not any disrespect whatsoever. We also hope that we'll look at our shared resources and fulfill each other's deficits, to try to compensate where we are deficient. And that is through student and faculty exchange programs, a couple of short hands-on courses like the courses that we offer in temporal bone and sinus surgery, as well as online trainings, which have become the way of teaching now with the pandemic ongoing. Our partnerships mainly started majority through word of mouth, if I'll say, and I want to acknowledge Professor Gilioma. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple of weeks ago from the virus, and everyone is really still mourning him and in pain over his passing. But he was a head and neck surgeon and a very big advocate for student training And he believes that there is no reason any program should not be able to thrive just because the resources are unavailable. Find where it is and make sure you utilize it. So he was a very key person in making sure that we have a flourishing exchange of students. And so our students in the final year will rotate down with him for about a month to 6 weeks, only in the head and neck region, and then would host the students in return for sinus and ear surgery, which they were not doing much of. The other people who are very key are our North partners. And through their other partnerships with other universities, we have met other people. So I want to acknowledge specifically those three people in that picture: Brian Westerberg from UBC, Gigi Osler from University of Manitoba, and Ron Devenesha from Mass Eye and Ear. And they were very key in introducing us to other people, but also in a way enabling the South-South partnerships. They would come for our courses. They come and they have served as a glue and as a bridge to advances in care. And then, of course, the most big issue here is making sure that the institutions do have memorandums of understanding. Where I practice, it is mandatory that if we're going to have a collaboration, an MOU is preferred to be on table so that there is agreed upon expectations, if I should say so. So the outcomes of our partnerships, there have been some that I would selfishly say they really are for mass only, and then some that I believe our partners have gained from there. Other than the student exchange, we have had a rise in the volumes of the patients that we're seeing and the patients that we're working on because we have better skills. Many of the times when we are to recruit any staff, we're going to look through our pool of students first. And so because they've had further training, it has been wonderful to have for them to come on board and they can offer something new. And when the residents do come back, we have noticed that there's a large improvement in their clinical skills. There's new skills, but there's an improvement in pre-existing skills. They also do have better surgical confidence and clinical judgment because they get exposed to working in a very different culture, in a very different environment where things are done differently. And so many times they will teach something new, but they will also come back with a better way to do things. Work ethic. It teaches you a lot when you have to collaborate with people from other regions and you have to be respectful of the way things are done in different places. And yeah, we have had several express interest in actually going back and working in other areas. I will say our program carries a lot of international students, especially from Somalia, Kenya, a couple of Tanzanians, and Congo. And many times they will complete and you'll find a few of the Kenyan residents saying, you know what, I think I'm going to go back and work in Tanzania after all. And so I think it has been a wonderful thing, and there'll always be a contact there. For our partners, programs, and then we have helped to refine resident curricula and evaluation methods. We have adopted different methods across the years, and once you invite them to be examiners, they see how you do things, or we see how they do things, and we will pick up on some things that will help us out here and there. The advantages, I believe, for South-South partnerships is we have easy prioritization and scheduling of activities. I mean, we run the same time zones, if I should say. We have pretty much the same communities that we serve. The needs are the same. So it's very easy to prioritize the needs of the community and the needs of the programs. It's also, I would say it's easy to balance power dynamics. And I may be speaking out of turn here because we haven't had any issues in the past, even with our North-South collaborations. But we have seen a couple of papers come out of people not happy with collaborations because they feel that a few times the North-South collaborations, especially where someone is coming from a more resourceful center or a more resourceful environment to a less resourced environment. And so there's always that upper hand because they provide funding or they provide the equipment and the training. So it's a little bit easier to balance because we're playing on level ground here, if I should say so. And then exchange programs are definitely more affordable, easier to sustain, and there's shared benefits. We benefit from their North-South collaborations. They benefit from ours. We benefit from each other's South-South collaborations. So it's a win-win, really, on both fronts. In view of challenges, I would say the biggest issue is the limited funding opportunities locally. A lot of grants and a lot north-south collaborations, more than it will in south-south collaborations. And then also we also have similar deficits sometimes. So you will find that we struggle with the head and neck section, but even Macquarie struggles with the head and neck section. So we can't really fulfill each other deficit in that sense. And then the equipment is, an issue in many places. So you're going to find we will have some things lacking and they will have some things lacking. They may be similar, they may be not. So that could also be an issue. And more often than not, you will find we do not feel like we get enough local administrative support. We don't have the luxury of having so many posts filled. So we'll kind of overtake the amount of dedication you give to a collaboration. So you have to make sure you coordinated the students' travel, you made sure they arrived, did they get the funding they required, are they sleeping well? In many ways, you would prefer someone else to take care of that. But if you have to do a memorandum of understanding, it's up to you to draw it up and then have admin pass it through, like you get the support you need. I feel that could be a challenge as well. But that's it. We enjoy our collaborations. Whether north south, whether south south, and we still feel that there's still a lot more that can be done in the future. We hope we can involve faculty more. Right now, it's a lot of resident-based collaboration. So we hope we can have faculty exchange programs that was supposed to start this past year, but with the travel bans and the pandemic, it has been impossible. Hopefully, we hope for curriculum harmonization and Adif is one of the speakers who is a lead person in COSEXA, and that is something we are looking into to help harmonize us so that we are all teaching the same curriculum. So students do not have to struggle that they're doing rhinology in one center and they have to move over and then switch over to something new. And then it will be great to look at a multi-center advanced training program that is really South-South based and South-South led. And maybe hopefully as well, look at a North-South, I don't know, North-South, South or South-South-North kind of collaboration where we are all on the same platform and we're all speaking the same language, and possibly also for some locally based research collaborations. We are not doing so much in that line yet. Well, thank you very much, Anusha. And I had a lot to say. I hope I haven't gone over my time.
That was great. Thank you so much for that presentation. Next up, we have Dr. Rubiano.
Did you see my presentation right now?
Yes.
Okay. So I think it's just a complement of what Dr. Nakku has mentioned about all the insights from these collaborations. I just want to present some of our experience working from Colombia with all of our different partners and how to the process have evolved. Okay. So we start working hard on global surgery and global health issues. In Bogota was released this that was called the Bogota Declaration on Global Neurosurgery on December 2016. It was the official entry point for the World Federation of Neurosurgical Societies into all the global health activities and global surgery activities, trying to promote increasing and improving neurosurgery care for all countries around the world, independent of the level of income. You can see many of these documents in many global areas that have been already developed in order to promote these activities. So as Dr. Nakku mentioned, we start a lot working with North-South collaboration. This is just one example with the Rogers University Group, where we can evaluate many issues about the actual state of global surgery in Colombia. It was a situational analysis that was a really point to start in order to understand what was happening inside the country with many of these issues. But then after many years working with this North-South collaboration, we start evolving to more South-South collaboration inside our own developed programs. This is a very good example of that. We developed in 2015 the Neurotrauma and Global Neurosurgery International Fellowship supported by the Barrow Neurological Institute at the Phoenix Children's Hospital in Arizona, and then the University of Cambridge entering into the process supporting that. But what we have evolved is that actually from Colombia, we are in the capacity of promote these activities and bring many neurosurgeons from all the regions in Latin America and also some South regions country in order to start working with them directly into this collaboration. These are some of the hospitals that are actually involved in the program. In the specific South-South collaboration, we have countries like Brazil, recently Bolivia, Argentina, Mexico, that have been working with us in the exchange of many of these academical programs. So also, as Dr. Nakku mentioned, we have environments that are more similar. Students become aware that in these regions, there are many similarities. Many of the barriers for taking care of the patients are similar. So learning in that kind of environment will improve their skills if they move to any of these countries. For us, we have been really surprised that we start receiving a lot of applications from Africa, Southeast Asia, and other countries that are considered in the southern region. So definitely what we have seen is that we have created this model that is very applicable to other South regions, and this South-South collaboration have been empowering in these recent years. So the integrative of this collaboration has become really a big network where we continue the collaboration with the northern countries, but also we apply all what we learn in these cooperations and partnerships to the new partnership that we offer from our center to other southern country regions. So this is the main working load that we have right now with this point. From University of Pittsburgh, we started many years ago a collaboration with our research center, and now we apply all this support in Guatemala with some specific hospitals developing research projects there locally, and we can exchange with them so many realities that we have in similar, so many of the barriers and problems that they have, and also the strengths and good experience are very similar because the contexts are so similar. And now we are moving from a big collaboration that we have with the University of Cambridge, supported by the National Institute of Health Research. And we are in the capacity of supporting other southern countries in this collaboration. So we start working also with Guatemala, but a different hospital in this time, the Hospital San Juan de Dios, and also the University of Sao Paulo Hospital, and also the Northwest Hospital in Pakistan in some research collaboration projects where they move to a similar project where we start, and now we are supporting them from the research perspective and also from the educational perspective, sharing our experience working in many of these projects. So the National Institute of Health Research is also supporting this Global Health Research Group on Neurotrauma that in the first stage was totally supported by the University of Cambridge. And now we are moving for a next step in order to improve this South-South collaboration, creating some hubs locally for each one of the regions working. We are working with the University of Sao Paulo in order to increase the hub from Latin America, being like a specific pivot role for other countries in the Latin American region, supporting this type of partnerships. So this is something that it's a big idea of Dr. Roy Nabajit about the multinational South-South collaboration on injuries, because we consider that one of the most common disease in all these countries are related to injuries. So injuries is a very important point of knowledge that we have, specifically developing protocol of how to work in limited resources settings. And this is something that has been very transversal and common in many countries of the southern region around the world. So this is an initiative that, as I mentioned, Dr. Roger have been promoting in order to work with countries like Nepal, Mongolia, Kenya, Tanzania, India, and Colombia. And they can share their strengths, the work that they have developed on specific topics. We have been very productive academically and in research areas related to traumatic brain injury, and we want to share that with the international community in order that they can learn from many of these aspects. So this is something very brief that I want to share about all this collaboration, and I'm very happy to then go to the panel discussion in this topic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rubiano. Dr. Jani, on to you.
Thank you very much. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
All right. Good morning, Jumbo, to everybody. And first and foremost, thanks to Anusha and her team for organizing this fantastic event. It's an honor to be with you this morning. and talk to you because yesterday is memory. Today will become memory, and tomorrow is you, the future. So it's so nice talking to the future, and hopefully you will carry on with the work that we have started and we wish to accomplish. So my name, as I've been introduced, is Pankaj Jani. I'm from the Department of Surgery, University of Nairobi, and involved with COSEXA. COSEXA is a true South-South partnership. My teachers realized about this and started a South-South partnership. Before that, what used to happen is most of the countries in Africa were British colonies, and people used to get Commonwealth fellowships and go to train in the UK or maybe Mozambique or France, depending upon which colony you came from. And the sad fact was only 33% of those who finished their training returned. So COSEXA was inaugurated, and it's the largest surgical training institution in sub-Saharan Africa, formed through a South-South partnership. This is, I personally believe, and I have a bias towards this, okay, that this is one of the greatest South-South partnerships occurring across 14 countries at the present moment. Why is this a South-South partnership? Because various countries are developed at different levels. When COSEXA was inaugurated, Kenya had 20% of the number of surgeons required, while Mozambique, Malawi, and Ethiopia had less than 5% number of surgeons required. So the core business of COSEXA is to train surgeons, and we came from a situation where some were more developed, some were less developed, and we formed the college. We deliver a common surgical program with a common examination and internationally recognized surgical qualification. So this, to achieve a common curriculum, common examination across 14 countries, is a huge achievement in the South-South partnership. The establishment of COSEXA, as I mentioned, my teachers in 1996 formed a steering committee, and they started thinking about this, and it grew from the Association of Surgeons of East Africa, which spanned something like 6 countries. The next step was what was the reason? Now, the question Anusha posed to us is, what was the reason for the South-South partnership? It was because the quantity and quality of surgical services available to the people, especially in rural areas within the countries in the region, was inadequate. We needed more surgeons. And the talk started in 1996. It was formally launched in 1999 at the Grand Regency Hotel in Kenya. If you truly dive into COSEXA, you will find it's a disruptive, innovative model of training surgeons for the rural areas in Africa. I truly believe this because even in Canada, even in the US, the question of answering the need for surgeons in the rural areas has not still been answered. You're converting most of the rural areas to cosmopolitan areas, but what about the rural areas? It's the second largest surgical training college in Africa, and it has the widest area covered. At the present moment, COSEXA has 14 member countries: Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Malawi, Ethiopia, Mozambique, Rwanda, Burundi, South Sudan, Namibia, Botswana. These are the 14 member countries. We trained 742 surgeons in 19 countries. So there are 5 satellite countries, members of COSEXA, which were interested in starting the training, and they have joined us as satellite countries. The population we covered at the present moment is 500 million people. So you can imagine a South-South partnership that's trying to address the needs of 500 million people by training surgeons in their countries. These are the various member countries, and the satellite countries range from Niger in the north to Lesotho in the south. Cameroon, Gabon are included there, DRC, the eastern parts of DRC, which are English speaking, and Somaliland. So these are the countries at the present moment. And it has been 21 years in operation, launched in 1999. 500 specialist surgeons successfully graduated. Some of these who graduated in the earlier years are now working in the rural areas as program directors and training others. We have 742 in training, 400 plus trainers, 50 master trainers, and 125 accredited training hospitals, out of which about 100 are active. We have a 90% retention rate of surgeons in the country of training. So this is a huge impact of a local South-South partnership, because retention of qualified people is a huge problem. Brain drain was our issue initially, and we have managed to sort that out. That's the first achievement. And the second achievement is that our surgeons, majority of the ones who train in the rural areas, prefer to stay in the rural areas, right? And this has been a very surprising fact to me. And I talked to my friends and colleagues, and they said, we do not like the traffic in Nairobi. We do not like the disrespect. They're respected more in the rural areas. And we've already grown roots in the rural communities, which we want to work on. It's an internationally recognized qualification. We have an annual scientific conference, and we have a bespoke electronic mobile phone enabled logbook. So there's a good assessment of what training going on. We have an e-learning platform, which is out of this world, which is School for Surgeons, supported by funding from Irish Aid through the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland. At the present moment, these are the number of accredited hospitals. We have 125 accredited hospitals. Active are 86, as I mentioned, and we have 742 trainees as I speak to you. This is another busy slide showing trainees by specialty. So we started with the membership college, which is for 2 years of basic surgical training and 3 years of fellowship training. And we have 9 subspecialties in which you can train. This has been a huge achievement, and we go by the needs. If you look at this slide, we also train surgeons in pediatric orthopedic surgery as a specialty, because that is desperately needed in low and middle-income countries. North-South and South-South partnership. Anusha, just to answer your questions in detail, power dynamics and equity are better served with South-South partnerships. Once you have a North-South partnership, power becomes an issue, right? Equity also becomes an issue at times. Research collaborations, there's more ethical work when it comes through a South-South partnership, because time and again you have read that research is performed with a North-South partnership and the South is forgotten. Other collaborations and partnerships are better established with South-South partnerships. So if you're looking for other partners, other collaborations, when you have a South-South partnership, it's better. In Africa, there is a very important saying that when 2 elephants fight, it's the grass that suffers. And usually it's grass that's Africa. Implementation of initiatives, again, better with South-South partnerships. Community support, again, better with South-South partnerships. These are my personal opinions, not opinions of the college, but as you asked me to tell you, share with you what are to the point, okay? And this is not black and white, this is gray. So there are certain areas where things could be better. Come to funding. Obviously, funding is better with a North-South partnership, all right? GSSA got a lot of help from the University of Edinburgh, from Irish Aid, and it came through the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland. And there are systems, setting up the systems and technology, we all know is better established in the North. And North-South partnership will bring you a lot of benefit in those areas. Funding, as I mentioned earlier, one thing that we believe is if there is funding, then all personnel working in the northern region must be on a pro bono basis. Otherwise, lots of funding stays where it's supposed to come from. Innovation, better with South-South, also with North-South. And sustainability, for sustainability, both are important. So I think these are some of the points I wish to cover, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. My time is up. So Asante Sana, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And you're the future. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that incredible presentation. At this time, we are going to be moving into the panel discussion portion. Just going to reset this to gallery view. Thank you all. Those were incredible presentations. I know I learned so much. I'm going to pass it over to Helen for the first question.
My first question is to Dr. Nakku. Thank you for your talk. I think you touched on a very interesting point that was actually brought up in our first day of this conference by Dr. Fitzgerald, which was, she emphasized the need of innovation which originates from Southern partners and from Southern settings, rather trying to transpose Northern innovations and force them to work in Southern settings. And you mentioned that one of the benefits of Southern partnerships is that you kind of you might share common deficits or challenges together, and you might have a deeper understanding of that. So how do you think we could encourage innovation which stems from these Southern partnerships?
I apologize, my mic was muted. Thank you. I wish I had a magic answer for that, but I don't. From my own point of view and from a little bit of experience in what we've gone through in the past, I would say there is need to listen. There is need to speak prior. Let's find out each other's needs and what it is that you can provide. So if something is going to work out and work out well, it has got to solve a specific problem. You can't have a collaboration where only one partner is identifying the problem for the other and saying, I'll fix that for you, because it may not be the priority problem on my table. So there is need for the different collaborators to speak, to agree on what is a workable solution on both sides and how it will be sustained. Because many times, yes, we'll present a problem, you'll present a solution, but then it's not a sustainable solution. And I'll give the example of equipment. You provide a fancy, wonderful piece of equipment. It's used, but there is no plan for service, repair, and accessories. So it goes to waste at the end of the day. So I think at the end of the day, there's need for clear communication.
Dr. Rubiano or Dr. Jani, you are both also welcome to hop on any answer to this question if you want to.
Dr. Jani, from my perspective, I think many of these aspects are related to every one of the contexts and how the initial collaboration support your effort in order to be, like a sound effort. Because regularly what we have done is that you develop some type of innovation or some specific context program that sometimes didn't bring attention from the Northern collaborations, but maybe that approach is very interesting for the Southern partnerships. So the idea is that we have been learning in this process is to be patient and show the point that you are creating with all these process and steps. And now we have been very lucky because, for example, we have promoted an approach that is developing protocols for TBI care in a stratified way. That is that we understand because, as Dr. Jani mentioned, the countries in the southern regions are in very different steps of development. Some have more resources than others, or even within the countries, there is a high heterogeneity of resources and training. So what we have proposed is to have some way of stratified the protocols of care. So if you receive more training or even more resources, you can move to the next step of protocol. And regularly when you feed and take a look over the protocols coming from the Northern collaborations, it's just a static protocol that needs to be applied. And this is something that we have been learning in the process.
Thank you. I think innovations have to be very contextually relevant. One of the reasons why ESDA for laparoscopic surgery, that's the initial robotic surgery, was came into being because of lack of assistance in theater and somebody to hold the camera and somebody to move things and things like that. But in Africa, we do not have, or in low and middle income countries, we do not have shortage of people in theater. So robots, for example, being introduced in low and middle income countries without laparoscopic surgery being established in various areas, right, is an innovation which I think is contextually not relevant. But I just wanted to talk about something more appropriate. Donald Lalonde, who was the past president of the American College of Hand Surgery and based in Canada at the present moment, has been working on Walant surgery. Walant surgery is W-A-L-A-N-T, standing for wide awake, local anesthesia, no tourniquet surgery. Now, this has prove to be a game changer in our region. It's in the introductory phase, but if you want to get out of poverty in Africa, you buy a motorbike, a two-wheeler, start a taxi, and you're a breadwinner for the family. When you fall and you have a fracture, everything is finished. Your kids are out of school, your wife and family is out of a home, and you're into poverty. Because we followed the old methods of treatment. Admit the patient, investigate, take him to the main theater the next day, fix it, keep him in the ward, and by that time, all the money is gone. But wide awake local anesthesia, no tourniquet surgery was introduced by Donald Lalonde, and we've done about 1,000 cases. This guy who comes with the road traffic accident could have an ankle fracture or a wrist fracture, right, which are the commonest ones. You do it under local anesthesia while he is wide awake, and you mix the local anesthetic with adrenaline, so you don't need a tourniquet, all right? And within 3 or 4 hours, everything is over, and the patient's ready to go home. So it's daycare surgery. It has been a game changer, and these are the innovations which are low cost, all right, effective and workable, which are supposed to be required. So thank you.
Thank you all for those insights. This next question will start off with Dr. Rubiano. Dr. Rubiano, you spoke in your presentation about how North-South partnerships will transition hopefully to South-South partnerships. Can you speak a little bit more towards what that transition looks like and how Northern partners can encourage and support making that transition happen?
Yes, thank you for the question. Definitely is something that it depends of the view of the partnership. We have been working several years ago in some specific grants that are called for capacity building. So these type of grants are really putting into the context the requirements of establish a North-South collaboration, and then do the transition for continue something in the Southern collaboration. But as Dr. Nakku mentioned, and also as Dr. Jani mentioned, the main problem for this is related to sustainability, because when you start the program regularly with the Northern collaboration, you have more funds available. And then when you start doing the transition, sometimes it's more difficult to at least continue the same amount of funding that was originally for the project. But we need to be creative. We need to understand that we also can continue supporting the projects even with less resources as initially. So definitely we have been very lucky to have been working with Northern collaborators that understand very well that process. And it creates a specific environment to work together. Also, as Dr. Jani mentioned, it's very important to start bringing into all these projects and initiatives the younger generation. We have been involving a lot of medical students and also a lot of trainees in order so they can understand the importance of the capacity building process and then can continue it. And also, we have been very lucky to understand that when you increase all these Southern collaborations and partnerships, you learn from each other, and there is always a possibility that some of these Southern country region can interact and also start bringing support into the collaboration. So it's totally about the way to start, and definitely all these capacity building programs are really important focus into that specific topic.
Thank you for that. Our next question goes to Dr. Jani. You spoke about the 90% retention rate for the surgeons at GSSA training. What do you think is the main thing that created this 90% retention rate?
Well, this is the unique training program, all right? You train in your comfort zone in a rural area, all right? And this has always been going on. It's just that we did not have it in a formal way. When I was at the district hospital in Busia at the border of Uganda and Kenya, all right, my senior doctor who used to do surgery would want me to do the basic surgeries. So he taught me how to lance an abscess, he taught me how to do an epi, and he taught me how to do an ectopic pregnancy, things like that. But it was not a formal training program. So what GSSA did was found out what was there, what is required, and filled the gap. So we created a training program. And when you create a training program, you're not duplicating things, all right? So that is the main reason why we have a 90% retention rate. They create, it's a really disruptive and innovative program, in the sense that you train in an area and you're going to be doing specific to what you're supposed to be working on in future. And that is what creates the retention, all right? You're always in your comfort zone, rather than going and training somewhere else, coming back and finding that you do not have the tools, or you do not have what you need always, and you're out of your comfort zone. So that is one of the most important things about retention. And more so, we have been talking to and advocating to these surgeons about the real needs. And the three aspects of training: knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Knowledge is not difficult, skills is not difficult, attitudes is important. What is professionalism? What is ethics? What is your moral values? And a strong part of this course is about these things, serving the poor and all that. And I think we were blessed in many ways, because we had many mission hospitals around, and they really helped us to get this program going. Thank you.
All right, the next question is actually to the group of you and goes off Dr. Jani's previous answer. I think it's very clear that we have three amazing teachers and mentors here that really have invested in training. And here in the audience, we have a lot of trainees and students. So for us moving forward, how do you see the role of students and trainees in supporting these partnerships? And specifically, how might that look different for students in high-income countries versus LMIC settings?
Okay, so if you want me, I can start. And definitely we have been devoting a lot of time to bring students into the whole process of capacity building and development on some South partnerships, because definitely at some point, we have this big example from COSEXA. It evolves to something that requires a lot of political will, because putting different countries to work together sometimes involves a lot of political decisions. So definitely the only way that this type of processes can progress is that you bring the younger generation of trainees into the actual working in the area, so they can develop their skills into something that will include a leadership profile, you know, because many of these students at some point will be involved in decision-making processes. And definitely they need to understand how the context of all these collaborations and partnerships works. Because if you only read that from the text, you didn't really understand what is the actual, or what are the actual issues working within these collaborations. And definitely you need to allow the people to understand from the ground, working in the field, how all these interactions comes, because mostly, as we have been mentioned, they are not really expensive issues, but are more related to human relationship reasons. And sometimes an important partnership or collaboration can be blocked or stopped just because one person of a group of persons that think differently. So definitely the most important thing is to have the students participating into this process, developing all this research process, also supporting a part of the medical care so they can understand how this environment grows and how they can make a difference for the future.
Thank you, Dr. Rubiano. And I think my answer is not very much different. It's really involving the students right from the beginning and discussing how they can be involved, either coming from the north or coming from the south. And how we have gone about it, we don't have a lot of student collaborations, if I should say. But we have had students coming from the north, actually coming in with a program or a project they would like to do. And we say the only way this is going to happen is you have to work with someone in the unit as well, so that we do establish a north-south kind of partnership, because the local student will know exactly what the context is of the environment in which you're working and how to observe the ethics and the cultural expectations. But that said, under innovations, for example, at my institution, we do have a project that been running for over 5 years. It's an innovations project, has a hackathon. And it involves local students, and it's a Comtech hackathon, and they do come up, we present problems. And so they sit down and they pitch solutions to these problems. And so they are assigned another group of students from a different university, and they collaborate on this and they work on it. And they've come up with some really great, interesting innovations. And many times they are going to be very sustainable because they are being built for our environment. And so they are likely to be more sustainable because they had the input, even if they didn't have the resources to do that on their own. So I think that's probably another way.
Thank you. I feel that students, have a lot to offer, a huge amount to offer. As I said, you're the future, right? And just some words of guidance. Leadership. We all sort of feel that leadership is inherent, but leadership can be learned, and there's a lot to learn about leadership. So if you can attend a leadership course and see how things move forward. And competence is what we feel we are all competent at, because the human mind is built in such a way that you're always bordering on the side of overconfidence. But competency is there, you become proficient, and then you become an expert. To become an expert, you have to have experience, right? And when you embark on these partnerships, North-South partnerships or South-South partnerships, the context is going to change. One has to be very, very well versed with this changing context, because what it means, your importance over time is going to go down if you're coming from the north and you want to make that happen. It's going to go down in the inverted commas, but actually it's going to go up. So when you pull out of the partnership, not completely pulling out, but initially finance, technology, system setting, admin build up are the things you'll be involved with, okay, on a smaller way. And then you move out of these and hand over these systems to your partner. I'm talking about North-South partnership. When you hand over these things and the Southern partners take over, you don't move out completely. You find a relevant niche in which you're going to be working. So it's a dynamic thing, not a static thing. And these are some of the areas where students, I find students coming over and feeling that every time they come, it's going to be the same interaction and involvement, but it's going to be a changing involvement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much. Unfortunately, we are running very low on time, and so we must move on to the research presentations. This was an incredible panel. I know I learned so much, and I think that the attendees also just learned so much from listening to all three of you, your experiences, the work that you're doing, and hopefully we're able to highlight this work a lot more, because I personally think it really needs to take a much more center stage in how high-income country students are learning about global health and global surgery, and the roles that they can play in increasing equity in all of these relationships.